Let's have a sesh on new share issues. So new share issues is when a limited company, that can be a private limited company or a public limited company, issues shares in exchange for a payment. And that makes them a shareholder. It's known as a type of equity finance. It's also a long-term source of finance, and it's definitely an external source of finance because it is finance, cash, coming from outside the business. And it is suited to established businesses. The pros and the cons of using new share issues. Well, number one is that this is using equity. This is using shares. It's not using debt or loans. So no interest needs to be paid. It's not a loan. And also, this payment, you don't need to pay it back. So that's a massive advantage. You have got this cash in. Number two is that, as I said before, this is for limited companies. If you are a public limited company, then you are going to be on the stock exchange. You are going to float a flotation onto the stock exchange. And this gives you a massive opportunity for enormous volumes of cash, of finance that you could get into your business for your business to grow and expand in the long term. Other things to think about is that when you open up to share issues, well, you could loop in a bit of HR in here because there's an employee incentive that you could create because lots of companies have profit sharing in their business to their employees, to their managers, because then they are incentivized and they are aligned with the motivations of the owners of the business. Because if the employees are going to get a chunk of the profits each year, then they may be more motivated and therefore they may be more productive. Also, sometimes using shares or equity is better than using debt like loans because the founders of the business that may have owned the business for 1, 5, 10, 20 years may be looking for an exit strategy. Or they may be looking for some of the share of their business, they want to realise it, they want to sell a bit of it to get some cash to go and holiday in Barbados. So it's an exit or cash in method, and you can't do this with a debt method, but you can do this with new share issues. It's a way of turning your percentage of the business into cash, realising your investment. The cons of using new share issues, number one, is that you are giving up a share of your business. And the big question is that once you give up 51% of your business, are you giving up control in your business? Are you losing control in your business? Because you've lost the actual ultimate decision making for the strategical long-term point of view because you've given up 51% and you only hold 49% as a consequence. And that's a big decision that you need to make if you are willing to give up that much, and that becomes the turning point you need to consider. Number two is that it's expected that you pay your shareholders dividends, divvies, because your shareholders, they're going to demand, if you're making a net profit, they're going to demand that they get their divvies, they get their dividends for the year. And you need to make that payment to them. And as a consequence of that, your retained profits are going to reduce because your dividends are paid out of your retained profits. Remember, your retained profits are found on your statement of financial position. Number three is that if you're a public limited company, well, then you've got to go through floatation. And floatation, when you move to the stock exchange, can actually cost a lot of cash. If you're an enormous, big business, it could cost up to £100,000 in order to do that. So that's a big administrative cost for your business and one that needs to be considered. Also, there's ongoing fees that you need to pay. £5,000 to £6,000 is the annual fee to be on the stock exchange. And also there's lots of rules, lots of regulation that you need to meet. For instance, you need to have a certain amount of directors and you need to do a certain amount of financial statements per year. All things that should be considered because that's going to be an additional cost through labour. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you at the next sesh.